One of the most interesting stories in the realm of the ATF calling stuff that isn't a machine gun is the AA-12 shotgun. This was a shotgun that captured the attention of a lot of us and got us very excited, only to have it be torn away and every example of it stolen by the ATF. There's a company at the center of all this, Sol Invictus Arms in Melbourne, Florida, that has gotten a lot of heat from this. Not many people know the full story. I managed to sit down with the president of Sol Invictus to talk about the whole thing, and I think you guys will be very entertained. This is a story with a lot of twists and turns, not only on the part of the ATF, but on the part of sabotage of business partners, lying, backstabbing, the whole thing. It's a really fascinating story, and I really think you guys are going to like it. So again, I sat down with Mike over at Sol Invictus, and we just got straight into it. First thing we talked about, of course, was a little bit of controversy surrounding the AA-12. If you guys like this content, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, whatever. And of course, I have links of other ways of supporting me down in the description below. Later on, we're going to have another video with Mike where we talk about the new product that his company is working on, which is very interesting. So, Mike, whenever there's an elephant in the room, I kind of just like to go straight for it. I've heard from some people online that you might owe them a little money. Is that true?
Yes.
So what happened?
And I believe I probably don't have the best reputation in the firearms world because of it. Some years ago, we decided to try to buy the rights to the AA-12. We started with Jerry Baber, and he was unreasonable. We went to the gentleman we found actually owned all the blueprints and had the designs, Oye Cornelius. We made a purchase of the designs, as well as we had to purchase his machine shop in Russellville, Tennessee, middle of nowhere. And we got it and thought, hey, this is going to be a great product. It's been very popular, and it's sort of an iconic weapon.
Right.
It's been in movies and video games, TV shows, etc. And so we thought, we'll get this thing, and the fastest way to get it into production is we'll put it up on Gunbroker and Arms List, and we'll take pre-sales, pre-orders for it, and we'll use that money to invest in the tooling and molds and etc. that we necessary in order, and some engineering as well, to get the project moving faster and be able to deliver the guns quicker. So we started taking these pre-orders and took a lot of money in and started spending money to get molds and, like I said, engineering and et cetera paid for.
Get the guns into
to get
existence.
it going.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, the ATF showed up. And the ATF decided that we needed to stop work on that project.
Right.
So essentially, I guess I learned a lesson. You don't do pre-sales on guns that you don't have ready to deliver.
Right.
So, ultimately I fucked up. And that's the way that it is. Although I have every intention, we've got new products that we're bringing out, and we felt that working and keeping the company open was the best way to pay everybody back the money that they've given us.
Right.
We think we owe about 130-ish people. We plan on getting them paid back as soon as possible. It's taken us a lot longer than we would like, but the reality is we know we owe the money.
Right.
We're going to take responsibility. We're going to give it back. And maybe once we give it back, then there'll be a few good comments that the guy actually, even after 3 years, actually gave us our money back like he said he would.
But you do have a project now that I've been very familiar with, and that we'll talk a little bit more about at the end, that does threaten to make it possible for you to pay these people back sooner than later, doesn't it?
It does. We've been working on it. Unfortunately, it took us about 3.5 years to develop because we were working on that simultaneously with the AA-12. But yes, I mean, it's finished. It's in full production. Unfortunately, by the time we got it finished the way we wanted, we've come into basically a no-selling season because you've got the holidays and then you've got SHOT Show coming up, and so probably until February we won't see the kind of sales that we anticipate.
Right.
But once we get that rolling, it should produce enough income that hopefully within 6 months of that we'll be starting to able to pay people back.
Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate, and I think that the audience should probably appreciate too, your willingness to kind of step out in front of it like that. It's really rare to see in the gun industry. It's not rare to see people making decisions that they later regret, but it is rare to see people actually stepping up to the plate and acknowledging what went wrong. So I really want to give you credit for that.
Well, I appreciate it, because we had two choices. We either go bankrupt and nobody would get any money, or we try to plug along, put in whatever resources we can, and keep the company viable, and then we'll be able to pay somebody back eventually. It may take a long time, but eventually we'll get there.
Well, that's awesome to hear, man, and I'm glad we can present this, outside of the more one-sided dialogue that happens in a YouTube comment. But let's take a step back now, because this gun, it really is. So I knew about this gun before I met you.
But you're holding the only
Yes.
one in existence
I
right
am.
now in the United States.
Right.
There are some overseas.
So it was, and when I met you, I didn't even draw the connection that you were involved with this. And when we started talking, you told me about the story behind this thing, and I just think it's so utterly fascinating. So I want us to get a chance to share that with everybody. So why don't you start with, how did this thing come on your radar? How did you first start pursuing this thing?
That thing, matter of fact, that, by the way, is a semi-auto version that the ATF made us register as a fully automatic weapon.
Right.
Which is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's the reality that we face right now.
Yep. I have a semi-automatic gun that's registered as a machine gun too, because the ATF is stupid. A Spitfire. So I know what you mean. It's quite infuriating.
Because you can get inspector after inspector here, but until it goes to the technical branch, and we've sent two, a full auto and a semi-auto, to the technical branch for evaluation. And now they've destroyed those along with all the others, and they want us to build two more in semi-auto and full auto, but we can't work on it until this criminal case against Boyer and
and so
and
we'll
Jerry
get to that. We're
is
skipping
over.
ahead.
So
we're skipping ahead. But so let's hear, how did this thing come on your radar at all?
I saw a video of it somewhere along the way, and I thought it was pretty cool. And my ex-wife's mom had a vacation place up in Georgia that wasn't too far from Piney Flats, Tennessee.
Okay.
So one day I just got in the car and drove to Piney Flats, Tennessee, and knocked on the door of this guy named Jerry Baber and said, "Hey, I see you got this AA-12 shotgun, and I'm in the firearms business. I'm really interested in it." Oh, well, he's all excited to show me, and the guy talks forever and showed me high-speed video of it working and taking it. We went out and shot it, and he's got all kinds of robots that he's got. Some company in California sent him, and he put guns on the robots because of the low recoil. It doesn't affect the operation of the robots. So it's got some really great potential and everything. And I saw it. Of course, he talks. He's changing the face of modern warfare. He's got all these great things, and these people in the Army and all, they just don't understand how this revolutionizes how they fight their battles.
Yes, how 12 gauge revolution.
So, and then of course he's got these shells that are going to, eject almost like a mortar round out, and then it'll blow up at a programmed time. So you can shoot over the heads of the enemy and then blow it up and shoot the shells down on top of the enemy. So he's got these grandiose plans, and some of them, it's cool ideas.
Right.
I don't know that they're feasible, but he then turned around and I believe the New Yorker magazine basically said the Army's a bunch of idiots for not buying his gun.
Really?
And my understanding is that he and Boyer went to Fort Benning to do a demonstration.
And who is Boyer?
Boyer Cornels is actually the gentleman. They say he's an engineer. He's not actually an engineer. He came after World War II as a teenager to the United States and started working in machine shops. And so, but he's very mechanically inclined. And so I would say he is an engineer because he's genius at some of the things he's made and built and designs he's come up with. And he did make this gun work when nobody else could. But there's still some design flaws there. But they went to Fort Benning to show the Army. And my understanding is that Jerry annoyed them so much they wouldn't let him on the test range. And so I think it went downhill from there with him in the military. You know, but he brags about all the people that have been to Piney Flats, Tennessee, to use and fire their gun. And probably the most famous video is of that the fake Russian.
Right. Yeah.
It's got a gazillion views, you know, and it's a pretty good video, I have to admit. A lot of fun to see it. So from that, I kept in my mind about it, and I said, you know, one day maybe this guy's getting old, he'll want to sell it.
Right.
And so I guess about 3.5, 4 years ago, I had heard that there was a semi-automatic version that had been made by Boyer, and that he was wanting to sell that design. But I thought that Jerry was sort of the head of the deal, so I went to see Jerry Baber and talked to him about buying the rights to the AA-12. And he's actually made all his money in doing investment casting. Okay. Primarily stainless steel. That's why the gun is all stainless steel. He has across the road from his house is a log cabin, and that is where he investment casts. And it's quite an antiquated operation. They still melt.
It's quite the log cabin.
It's big. It actually has an indoor swimming pool.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something to see. But they actually still take a cradle with two guys and physically pour the stainless steel into the molds. So it's a very antiquated system. You've got problems. Most of the parts, because we inherited boxes and boxes of parts from Boyer that were no good, because they've got voids and et cetera, because there's the temperature change from taking out of the furnace to pouring the molds. They would just pour a mold and then somebody else would move and put another mold in, and they kept standing there and kept pouring, and so every pour is a different temperature. And so you end up with a lot of bad parts.
Right. Sounds like every part in the row in a row would just begin growing.
Yeah. So you know, it was just an impossible situation. Boyer basically had to machine or file or hand fit almost every part for every gun he ever built. And Boyer is the only one, other than us, that has ever built an AA-12. Jerry Baber has never built one himself. And that gets into a little more interesting where the ATF is at with criminal charges.
So from what I understand there, this was almost kind of a like sabotage story at the end of your deal coming to fruition, right?
It was.
Yeah.
It was, because we made a deal with, Boyer Cornels, and it cut Jerry Baber totally out of the picture.
And so how was that?
Well, Jerry wanted $10 million for his molds, and I told him to basically go fuck off. And so then
you're like, I'll make my own molds.
No, I'll go see this guy Boyer and see what he wants for the drawings, because my understanding is he's got all the engineering drawings. Because when I was questioning about getting a price from Jerry, I said, now I'm going to get all the molds, but I'm going to get all the engineering drawings and everything. He said, oh, well, I'll get them from my engineer, Boyer. And I'm like, who's this Boyer character? So I actually downloaded the ATF database and searched for somebody that had an 07 license with the name Boyer. And that's how I found the dude.
That's how you found him.
In Russellville, Tennessee. And you probably won't even find it on a map. And he worked out of an old filling station. And it was so old, there were actually parts still there for Model A's. So, I mean, it was crazy.
That's fantastic.
But went to visit him and his wife Dottie, and they're super awesome people, just salt of the earth people. And we negotiated a deal, and we bought the rights to it. But
so from them, you bought all of the technical data package, basically.
Correct.
And the machines that were used to make it.
We bought all of his machinery that he had, and we bought his entire shop. And he was wanting to sell because the state was coming in and forcing him to vacate the property because they were going to build a highway that was going to basically destroy that old filling station. And he just was not, at 92 or 3 years old, he wasn't in the mood to move everything,
right.
And he just wanted to be done and retire. So that's how.
It's understandable. It is always wonderful how the blunt instrument of the state can force you to sell something.
Yeah. So, but I mean, he came down here a couple of times. We put him up in a hotel, and he helped us build that one gun that's left that we actually made here.
Right.
But to go back to how they originally got made and how the ATF got them both on criminal charges.
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting part of the story.
Interesting story,
Yeah.
and most people don't know any of it.
Right.
But it turns out that the frame is actually stamped sheet metal.
Right.
Stainless steel, still, because Jerry's got a thing about stainless steel. But he had a sheet metal shop stamp the frame and fold it.
Right.
So, and the eyes of the ATF, that person just made a machine gun.
Right.
Because these were fully automatic at the time. There were no semi-auto versions. So that person that owned that sheet metal shop actually was a convicted felon. So right off the bat, you got a little bit of a problem. Well, then,
and it is frustrating, right? Because I mean, I don't know if they actually intended for that to be the receiver at that time.
I don't know that that's what you would call the receiver either. I mean, if you look at the part, when it's a part, it looks, I mean,
it kind of looks like the receiver, though.
To a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's an ejection port there, and so I mean, you would assume that would be the receiver portion of the gun. But then Boyer asked Jerry, because he lives in a different part of the state, so do I need a license to put these things and build these things and put these together for you?
Right.
And Jerry's like, no, you're working under my license. Well, you got another problem.
Yeah.
So Boyer didn't have a license.
Right. There's no license, no variance, no nothing.
No, none of those things. No
Which,
tax,
by the way,
no
guys,
tax stamp.
Yeah. By the way, not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You can make guns for somebody else's FFL under yours with a variance.
Correct.
You don't get to just kind of say, "Don't worry about it."
Although you cannot make machine guns for someone else without a variance.
Right.
So there's a catch to that too.
Yeah.
Because you can only do samples.
Right. Exactly. Because then you'd be. Exactly.
So that's the stupid part of the law too. Why a machine gun manufacturer can't sell to another machine gun manufacturer machine guns, I don't understand. We both have the license to make them. We both have the license to own them. Why the hell do I have to have a letter from a sheriff saying, and I can get two?
Right.
Who made that rule? Because I guarantee you it's not a law. There's no way. Somebody made a freaking rule.
I have to check. I'll put a thing right here where it is.
All right, because it's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Whether it is in the law or not, that is true.
So then it gets better still, because now Boyer builds the guns.
Right.
And then he delivers them
Piney Flats,
in Russellville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then he delivers the guns to Jerry Baber, who does a Form 2 on the guns that he just made these guns.
Right.
Well, he didn't make the damn thing. So obviously there are criminal charges pending against both of them, and it's in court.
Well, so hold on a second. So that does kind of show that a crime was committed, but it doesn't show how that they were caught. And I think the way that they were caught is a little more interesting, because honestly, people probably do crap like that all the time, probably, and don't say anything. But what happened with these guys? How did ATF start to do the sniff?
Well, obviously, when I told Jerry to go pound sand that
He didn't like
he
that.
wasn't. He wasn't too happy about that situation. So when he heard that we had made the purchase of all the designs, and that Boye's shop, and he was coming down and helping us, he decided to call the ATF and tell them that the AA-12 semi-automatic is easily converted to fully automatic. That changed everything for us. We had 7 different field inspectors or field agents come into this office, into this room, and look at a semi-auto and a full auto side by side and said, absolutely, there is no way to easily convert this semi-auto into a full auto.
Right.
You've
And,
got
and
multiple,
to interrupt you there,
yeah.
This is an interesting piece of lore. There is no easily converted prohibition. The prohibition is on unregistered manufacture of machine guns. So there is no easily converted. The question is whether or not the weapon was designed to shoot full auto. I have a separate video about this. But this is just utterly fascinating to me. Whether, the whole issue of conversion aside, this gentleman calls the ATF to snitch on himself for something that he's trying to say, he's trying to say these new semi-auto ones are the problem. But what did he think that ATF was going to do when they came sniffing, right? Did they think they were just going to ignore all of the machine guns?
And then not only that, the problem is all the semi-autos were made from full auto frames.
That is a problem.
Okay?
That is a problem.
Boyer had a machine shop. You couldn't do that at your house.
No.
Because the holes is different pattern.
Right.
And some of them overlap. So so the only way Boyer could do that is he welded some of the holes shut, then machined them, and then used a Bridgeport mill to put the hole in the right place where you could do that. You couldn't do that with a drill press at home.
Right. And by the way, a Bridgeport is a manual machine, so this is another instance of Boyer being very old school and sitting there with his hands to...
No, he's actually very technically minded, and he has PC computers hooked up to his Bridgeport.
Oh, he converted his Bridgeport.
To made them CNC.
But he just wanted it to be a Bridgeport.
But that's what he did. He had very little modern machinery in his shop. Most of it was old machinery, but he made these conversions. He had a desktop computer and with a bracket and everything that was welded to the frame of the Bridgeport to sit there so he could type in and put in G code to make the Bridgeport operate and do what he wanted.
That's hilarious.
So the guy was brilliant dude.
Yeah. But very, very much in his specific way. And this is, I'm assuming that they had, probably when they were making the semi-auto, they were figuring, oh, well, why would we get another pattern of receiver made? We'll just work on these.
Well, because he was just getting the parts from Jerry.
Exactly.
So he was making them and then selling these semi-autos. So, of course, once the ATF found out how the semi-autos were made on full auto frames, which again is a bunch of bullshit.
Nonsense, right.
It's total crap.
Yeah.
But once that was found out, the ATF went all over the country and confiscated every AA-12 made except for the one that we made.
Because, well, this didn't exist at that time, right? Or
no, this did. No, this actually existed. We had several that we bought that Boyer had in semi-auto. Well, I think we had 4.
Okay.
2 semis and 2 full autos that were confiscated.
Right. But this one, you thought ahead.
And we made this one. Well, this was our first prototype on us making our own.
Right.
So we got the sheet metal and we folded it ourselves here. And so that's the only reason.
Right. Yeah.
That one is still, I mean, even the movie guns, the prop guns were destroyed.
Right.
Every AA-12 in the United States was destroyed except for this one here. And they have heartburn over this.
Yeah.
They come in at least twice a year and they want to see this gun right here and make sure we haven't done anything to it.
Right. That's so fascinating. But yeah, so this one is different in that the receiver was never, it started out its life as a semi-auto.
Correct.
Yes.
It's never been a full auto receiver.
Right. But just to be sure,
the ATF required us to file Form 2 and register it as a machine gun.
Which is bonkers.
Again, it's total crap.
Yeah.
It's just, and they even have told us that when the criminal case is over and we start working on this project again, that the first 2 guns that we make, one in semi-auto, one in full auto, both have to be registered as fully automatic and sent to the technical branch for approval. Now, it's my understanding I don't have to send shit to the technical branch.
I agree with your understanding. And also, I cannot undertake to find any portion of the law that would enable them to force you to do that.
Well, we don't have any intention of doing that.
Okay.
When we make them and we make a semi-auto, we're going to sell the semi-autos. And when we make the full autos for the military or the police, which actually it won't be those.
Right.
They need really a different design. That thing weighs 12 pounds without a magazine in it. And it's, the military, you're on a full auto version, it's your trigger pull that relegates it to whether it's semi-auto or full auto. Right. So you pull halfway, you get a single shot, trigger. You pull all the way back and you get full auto. And the military doesn't want that. They don't think our kids signing up in the military are smart enough to figure out how to go from semi to full auto, or they'll just get panicked in battle and just blow all their rounds.
Right.
So they want to switch. And that's going to take a redesign of the entire fire control group.
Right. Yeah. I took a look in there when we were looking at it. There's a couple things on this gun that need to go.
Well, even the way that it stands,
yeah.
it doesn't really work consistently. And
Right.
it's not something that we would sell until we fixed the extraction method.
Yes, which it's kind of funny. I was looking at acquiring some machines, which is a thing we're working on separately, and I looked into this wire EDM machine that was back there, and there was this preposterous shape on the plate.
Yes.
And I was like...
The tuning fork.
Yeah, I said, what the hell is that? And you go, oh, that's the AA-12 extractor.
Yes, we call it the tuning fork because it actually looks like a tuning fork.
Yes, it does. It is. There's so much, and you can tell. There's a few guns out there that are fantastic, which were designed by people who didn't know anything about guns. And then there's the other ones, right? Where there's just certain decisions that are made that are utterly bizarre.
Well, in general, I mean, this gun has possibilities.
Right.
And,
I agree completely.
And honestly, the only thing we would fix on that gun right now to sell to the consumer, because it's really a collectible,
right.
I believe, more than a gun they're going to go out and shoot or hunt with or do anything like that. I think we're talking that's a collectible type weapon. But the problem that we had is ejection because of this tuning fork. So the only consistently good ammo that we found worked was the Aguila high brass shot shells.
Right.
And you definitely have to have high brass because of the expansion of the shell in the chamber and the timing to eject it.
Yeah. So what is actually the operating mechanism on these? Are they recoil operated? Are they piston operated? Or?
It's a long stroke gas piston.
Okay, so it's like a deluxe 12 gauge AK.
More or less.
Yeah.
And it's got it's probably a 6-foot recoil spring in there that's part of what dampens the recoil.
Right.
I mean, plus there's some additional engineering in the back end that helps dampen the recoil. So, I mean, people have seen it opened and they understand how it's made, but the problem is consistent ejection.
Right.
Because the different companies, if you took and you got a shotgun shell from Federal, from Winchester, from Aguila, and you put 6 shells next to each other, and I'm pretty confident you're going to find that the crimp at the bottom, so as the brass comes down and then it crimps to the flat, that is different angles on every one of those shells. Mm-hmm. And that tuning fork that we talk about
perfect engagement.
Has to come up and has to grab. And so if there's too much of an angle, it has nothing to grab hold of, and it can't eject the round, and you get it jammed around.
Right.
So now there's a video out there at SHOT Show Range Day from, 3 years ago? And I think we ran through about 4,000 or 5,000 rounds of ammo on demos for the press and various folks that are allowed to come to the range day. And the gun ran flawlessly. It's now since been destroyed. But the gun ran flawlessly, and we used strictly Aguila. We ran out of Aguila, and we got some Federal from the ammo shop there they have at range day. And it jammed continuously.
Right.
So that was pretty much the end of the show for us, showing off the AA-12.
Right.
But a lot of people got to shoot it, and a lot of people had a lot of fun with it because it is a whole lot of fun to shoot.
Right. Well, so and the nice thing about it being, I guess because you do eventually hope to make this once, once there's a less of a looming threat of the ATF, and once you have the resources to do so. I think the nice thing about it being long stroke is that you can, once you fix the extractor, you could do like an AK would do in a situation where you have different types of ammo and make it an adjustable piston. And that way you could tune it all the way down to birdshot and all the way up to other things. But of course that's dependent on having an extractor that works.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then, look at the extractors on most shotguns, and the design is totally different.
Right.
And so
and there's a reason.
There is.
Yeah.
And we've looked at the Sega extraction method, and that'll probably be one of the first things we try. We'll probably buy a Sega extractor and mill out the bolt and put it in and see how it works.
Yep.
And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the design and start designing our own.
Right.
But that's sort of how it goes in the gun industry. So a lot of times you copy something else that someone has that works.
Right, and well, because the other thing is, we're really using old technology here. And I mean, like, even the 12 gauge is something so fascinating to me, because we have these types of problems. Well, and people will be like, oh, they can't figure out 12 gauge has been this long. We're talking about a cartridge that has existed since the 1800s, but wasn't even remotely standardized into the 20th century. Like, there is still plenty of times where you would buy a shotgun and it would have a, this one has a 2.5-inch chamber. This one has
absolutely.
2
or 3/4 or 3 inch or whatever.
Then we get into like 16ths, and they would all, because the scam back then was you would buy the shells, which you would reload, for, that went with your gun.
Specific weapon.
Yeah. And so a lot of that stuff has kind of stayed around especially see shot shells from different countries, they look very different at the base, and the guns are just kind of designed to tolerate that.
Yeah. This is one of those guns because it only accepts one length shell.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a funny thing. You told me before, why was this not going to be a problem according to the Piney Flats gentleman?
The shot shells?
Yes.
Well, he took upon himself to have somebody make custom shells for himself that he said you could only use the AA-12 with the, what was his, Military and Police,
right.
I think was the name of his company, Military and Police Supply or something like that. And so you could only use that ammunition. That was the only ammunition that was rated for that weapon.
And so, of course, if you took that advice, this would never be a problem.
Absolutely,
right?
Because you're going to get exactly the crimp you need for the extractor to pull it out.
And so you never thought this was going to be an issue. I'm guessing you were thinking this guy just wants to make money by selling me shot shells.
And I should have figured it out, because one time I went up to his place, because I've been to his place at least 3 or 4 times.
Right.
And one time I went up to his place and I took like 2 or 3 boxes of I went to Walmart and got some Winchester white box and took it in there and thought, I'm going to shoot a bunch this time. Okay. And I went in. Because
he would usually only give you a handful of rounds.
Right, like maybe load a 20 round or maybe a stick mag, and that's all I would get. And so
these are what, like 8?
I think there's 8. 8?
Yeah.
8 rounds.
Yeah.
So
you're thinking, if I'm going to spend real money on this, I want to shoot it.
Absolutely, I'm going to have some fun. If I'm going to drive all the way here in the middle of frickin' nowhere, I'm going to have some fun with this gun. And no, I got the ammo, whatever. And so, it didn't even dawn on me that, he had specific ammo that he was using in the gun to make it work.
Right.
And then, we actually tried, before he turned us into the ATF, we actually tried to go negotiate with him to buy the molds. After we made the acquisition of the design and technical package and the shop of Boyer's, we actually drove to Piney Flats, myself and my marketing manager, and we went to his house. And first we went over to the cabin, and there was no one there. And so then we drove up to his house. And his house is another more modern log cabin, but it's almost all glass. And so I went to the door to knock on the door. And as I was walking up to the door, for some reason I could see through the glass, there were like 3 different king or queen size beds in the house that were in different places. There was one that was like in the living room. There was one that was like in the dining room. I mean, but you could see through the entire house. And all I saw was a big old bare moon pointing at me because he was laying naked, I guess, on the bed in the living room. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this. And I turned around and left. And I tried my best to get Michael, my marketing guy, to come up and see this. He's like, I ain't going in, no way.
Oh, man.
So that was our one
the cherry
effort.
on top.
Yeah. And I said, you know what?
The peach on top.
We'll just deal with it. Yeah. So that will forever be stuck in my mind.
Now, this is also the same cat who had a very interesting way of testing.
No, that's Boyer, not Jerry,
Boyer.
who did testing. So,
okay, so yeah, you said the embarrassing story about Jerry. Now tell about
Well, you have to understand, Boyer knew nothing about guns when
Right.
Jerry got him to try to figure out how to make his AA-12 work.
Right.
Because the previous engineer could never get it to fire.
Right.
Because Jerry wasn't an engineer. So we went into his shop, and we are going over the details of our deal and et cetera. And he made, in addition to the AA-12, he had a little, like a North American revolver, a little 22 long pistol revolver, and he was selling those to the local gun shops. His wife would go around in her car and sell these to all the local gun shops, these little revolvers. And so he was sitting at the workbench and he's working on one, and we're chatting away and talking, and I'm not really paying any attention. And he takes the gun and loads it, and then, not on the side where I'm at, shoots into the floor this 22. And I almost shit myself. I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, I had to test it to make sure it worked. And I'm like, you're shooting into a concrete floor with a 22 and that's how you test it? Well, yeah. And I'm going, he goes, why? I'm going, you don't do that, Boyer. That's not I can't tell you that's not the way you test guns. And so then later we go in and he's going to show us the AA-12. We go into what would be where the lift stations would be for cars. And it's just almost like a warehouse, but there are some machines in there. But he's got one place that's carved out, and he takes the AA-12, loads the magazine up in it, and fires 8 rounds into a concrete block wall with birdshot. And the stuff's coming back and raining down all over us. And that's the way he tests the AA-12. I get to the hotel, I take a shower, and the shower's full of birdshot's coming out of my hair.
Oh, man. That's such a... Well, I guess that is kind of what you'd expect of the people who presently had all the, rights to the AA-12.
Well, it's just
kind of an insane gun,
have
right?
gun guys making this gun.
Right.
Neither one was a gun guy.
Yeah,
Neither one was really an engineer.
Yeah, you had a casting guy and a...
Basically, really it was a machinist,
Right.
a very skilled machinist.
Yeah, from Germany.
From Germany that, learned a skill and had a mind of an engineer.
Right.
But never had anything to do with guns. I mean, he worked for a lot of different companies, he made thermostats even. I mean, he made all kinds of different stuff.
Well, that is just so fascinating. And I can see, I can totally see just the interest and the intrigue of this drawing you further in, right? And that might have caused you to not see some red flags. So this is interesting, and I was suspicious of this when you, and I actually didn't confirm until just now, but I have this awful little gun that's behind me in all of my videos. I saw it in a local pawn shop, and I was like, this is just hilarious. and it was. I also recognized it from a movie. I forget which movie, but it was the Thunder 5. It was a revolver from the 90s that says Piney Flats, Tennessee at the top, and it shoots 410 and 45 long Colt. And these are the same people. Both of the same people.
Both of the same people, and both basically the same deal.
Oh my God.
Jerry made all the castings, and Boyer built the guns. We have one of the Thunder 5s ourselves.
Yep, it's a fun little gun.
It's a great gun.
I got it for snakes, and it's great for that.
It's basically the precursor to the Taurus Judge.
Right. So they had a company that was just selling those, and it was all they made until like 97 or something, I think.
I don't know. I know they were involved with somebody in Atlanta that I believe did market those.
Yeah.
And I don't know the whole history on it. I just know that the two of them were the ones that actually made them.
Right. So I'll put up some video of me showing mine, but this is just like, imagine a Taurus Judge, but just looks stupid. Like the hammer looks
like it's all cast.
Yeah, it's all cast, and the hammer, even like the barrel jacket. I think there's an insert. Right?
No,
that's a cast barrel.
They even cast the rifling in the barrel is cast.
That explains why it's rounded on the edges. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, yes. And this thing, it has a hammer that's like a 1911 like competition hammer, and a safety that's like an AR. It's a hilarious looking stupid little thing. And I was just realizing, and especially when you said,
you think how many Judges have been sold,
right?
And this guy came up basically with this gun, and I don't know who helped him with the design and the invention of, but they came up with this gun that has been wildly popular. I can't imagine how much money Taurus has made.
Yeah, obscenely popular. And when you said all he did was casting and Piney Flats, I was like, wait a minute, because I was thinking of just my hideous cast revolver, and they also had a cylinder for it that was, and like, this is how insane these people are, right? The same people who did that, the same people who shoot into the ground, the same people who did the AA-12 would also make a revolver, all cast, that shoots 45 long Colt, 410, and then if you have the solid cylinder, 45-70.
I never have seen that.
Oh yeah. Usually when you find them, they have two cylinders. Mine only has the 45 cylinders, but they have a cylinder that's solid. It doesn't have any flutes, and it shoots 45-70. And
Jesus.
Shooting that out of the cast frame would freak me out.
Shooting anything out of the cast frame, now knowing been in his casting shop,
right, where it was hand poured,
would freak me out.
Oh my God.
I mean, we've shot ours a couple of times, but I'm always like, God, I hope this thing doesn't fucking blow up.
Well, with 410, I'm not too worried about it, but I've just kept mine to 410.
No, I've shot some 45 long out of ours, and
it makes you feel weird.
It'll snap your wrist too.
Yeah, no, because the bore is in a different zip code from your hand.
Yeah,
it is ridiculous.
Yeah, not good.
That is so funny. Well, I think that just about covers the AA-12. Of course, they came in. ATF was given a bad lead by Jerry. Then they found a good lead, which was all of the guns being originally machine guns, chased them all down, eliminated them, and of course, y'all are here holding the bag with the designs for that gun that is the subject of all this controversy, and now ATF is basically holding a bayonet to you guys saying, chill out until we finish our criminal case, which is against two 90-something-year-old men.
And you got COVID in the middle of it, so I don't think that case is a priority for anybody.
Right. So
I doubt they'd ever put them in jail.
And they seized. Did ATF seize the drawings too? I remember you told me they seized a bunch of nonsense.
They took all of the frames that we have, because we got frames from Boyer. We transferred everything the way you're supposed to. And they took anything and everything that was frame related.
Okay.
So,
And I think you said they tried to take some other related stuff as well.
Oh, they wanted like the bolts and stuff like that. I mean, there's no reason for you to take anything else.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, the ATF's going to do what it's going to do. You know, my
Yes.
problem is with the ATF is that, you know, there are laws and there are rules.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really give a shit about your rules because who made you Congress?
Right. Well, unfortunately, Congress in the past 10 years has given an extreme amount of rulemaking authority to these agencies, and it is you've correctly identified it as the single largest expanding area of governing law and the least accountable one, because you can't vote to recall an ATF director now, can you? You know?
No, but you know, my problem is that, you know, why are there not more lawsuits? Why isn't the NRA, and you know, they're the big dog, or maybe not anymore, but you know, why aren't these organizations suing on these rules, this rulemaking?
Well, so a lot of organizations are. The problem is that ATF is very good at evading review. And so ATF's good at evading review, and the big players in our industry don't want to get their hands dirty. The big importers, the big manufacturers are more willing to just bend over and take it, right? Because it's better for the bottom line in the end, it really is, than to make a stand. And so that makes it difficult. You do wind up getting companies that do stand up. You do wind up getting companies that stand for what they believe in, which I believe y'all do. However, imagine you're the ATF and you're like, okay, this small manufacturer, because by the way, most of the gun industry is small manufacturers. That's most of the industry.
Absolutely.
The small manufacturer is going to push us on this rule. If they win, we can't bully everyone with it. How about we just stop enforcing it in this case?
Well, and how much does it cost? Because the government has
Well,
unlimited
to get 'em
funds
there, yeah.
to go to court to do it.
Right.
That's the problem, is the small guy doesn't have the capital
Right.
to fight that battle.
Well, that's why I said sometimes when he does, the government will make the tactical decision to leave him alone. That way,
But they still enforce it to everybody else. It's just total crap.
yeah, it is. Well,
Because I'll tell you what, if they put me out of business over this shit, I'd move my ass down to Panama and open up and sell the shit and find somebody up here to import it and say, fuck them.
yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Because you're not going to do that. I mean, that's bullshit.
Well, and also the law says it's very clear. You know, a lot of people think, and I get very frustrated. People say we just got approval for this and that. There is no way for the ATF to approve any gun. They cannot do it.
They can make a determination after it's out.
Right. Or you can send it to them.
Is what I believe. Or you can send it to them for prior determination.
Right.
But I don't
that's not
believe
an
you
approval.
have to do that.
No, you don't have to do it. And it's not an approval.
Yeah.
And so when it's something like, you know, for example, these uppers, right, that they don't approve anything. They say, we looked at this and this doesn't fall under our jurisdiction because it's not a firearm. Well, that doesn't mean anything. What protection does that give you if they decide to change their mind later on?
Dude,
No.
I had the ATF inspector come in here, and we had parts to make suppressors.
Oh, I love this story. Yeah,
and they made us cut up all of the baffles
right.
and destroy the baffles for the suppressors because we didn't have them registered. And when we got called in on the mat, so the head of the ATF for the Southeast had myself and my two partners go to Orlando to meet over the AA-12 and tell us that they don't want us to do any further work on that weapon. Mm-hmm. And then while we're there, I'm asked the question about why did I have to destroy these baffles for the suppressor? I don't understand. What are we supposed to do? Because you're going to make these on a machine,
right.
And you're going to make, you know, you're doing them probably on a screw machine, and you're making, 500 in a day.
Right.
And now we got them, and we got them in a box, and we're not ready to do the tubes or whatever.
Right.
We're a machine shop.
Suppressor.
We can make parts as we have machine time open. Rather than have a machine sit and do nothing, you make parts.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the machine doesn't make you money if it's idle.
Yes.
So make something with it. So the guy tells me this is the best ever, that I need to count all of the baffles, and I got to put them in a box, and then I got to put a serial number on the box and a number, the quantity of the baffles that's in the box, and put that in my gun book. And then every time I take some out of the box, I got to cross through the line,
Right.
and then put the new number. I go, is there a particular engraving depth that I need to write this with?
On the cardboard?
Yeah. I go, I've never heard anything so stupid in my life.
And that's and to be fair, y'all do have the wildest ATF regional office here. They are wild. They are completely.
Can you imagine Silencer Co?
Yeah.
With boxes and boxes
Yeah.
and boxes
All
of
these
fucking
registered
parts
boxes.
going, somebody, I need a red marker. I got to cross out this number.
No, there's no support for that. That was one individual, inferring upon an inference this. And luckily, ATF is reeling back some of that confusion. But of course, they're doing it in the most insane way possible by now determining that a suppressor has a frame or receiver. Importing that language from another area of the law, which it can't do. It's ridiculous.
It is totally ridiculous. And
but at least now they won't be doing that nonsense anymore.
But I mean, but can you imagine telling me that you're going to put these things in a box and write with a marker on there how many they are and put a serial number? And I'm like,
and register the box.
Well, I'm registering a box.
Yeah.
Because I've only got one serial number. I got 300 parts in there,
Right.
but I'm not registering 300 parts.
Right.
So it was so ludicrous. And this is the same people that are telling me I can't do anything with the AA-12 and send inspectors in here constantly. We went for the first 5 or 6 years we were in existence. We never had an inspection.
Yep.
When they reported the AA-12, I told you we had 7 different inspectors in here just to look at the AA-12. But we also had a full inspection, of the facility, and we've had one ever since, every year since. And they still come in additionally to check and see that we haven't done anything else with the AA-12.
That's fantastic.
I mean, if I had big money, they would be in court because they have put some bullshit crap rules in place for me or my company that is ridiculous.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. That is, I think you're certainly the victim of ridiculous circumstance here. I think you honestly, in a proper world, you should have faced no repercussions whatsoever. Of course, we don't live in that world. We live in a world with an out-of-control, insane administrative bureaucracy that believes itself to be ordained with all powers. And, it's the same universe. It's very clear that it's the same universe where this dude, right? Because, aside from that, what is he? What is this guy who told you to register your box? The law says...
In front of the head of the Southeast.
Right, and that guy's not a lawyer.
And he doesn't say anything about that. That's bullshit.
Why would he? Well, because there's the thing, muffles the report of a firearm. I guess if you put a gun in there and shoot it, it'll sound different, right?
Yeah, it's just the whole thing's just a bunch of crap.
Insane. It's insane, and I really hope this all gets resolved. I hope this gun can hit the market because it's super fascinating, and it's a gun that has a lot of intrigue about it. We'll have some video, I'm sure, overlaid of the gun shooting. It is really a cool looking gun.
It's a lot of fun, and like I said, my guess is we'll bring it into production. We'll make, I don't know, maybe 3,000, 5,000 units, and then that'll probably be the end of it.
Because it is going to be an expensive gun.
It is.
It's very complicated. There's no way around it.
And if we were to do anything else with it, we would take the time there's new materials, and we'd have to redesign the fire control group and all, but it would be a good weapon for the military, not in its current configuration and its current weight. It's too heavy. They need to be down 7 or 8 pounds for the military to accept it, and at 12 to 13 pounds, it's just ridiculous. It's not anything that's viable.
So that's the AA-12 story, and I mean, it was a doozy. Stay tuned, guys, because I'll be uploading the second part of this where we talked about the Sol Invictus TAC-9, the story behind it, and what to expect for it in the future. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.